Hello and welcome to the second season of the live interviews. I'm Jeff Leibow, co-founder and producer of the NF Hope Concerts, and your host for this season. The live interviews came out of the pandemic as we were transitioning to a virtual stage. We had the wonderful problem of having so many generous artists contributing their talents and their performances that we decided to try something new and create an interview series where we could get to know these artists a little bit better. Learn where they got their start in music, where they are right now, and even what their connection is to this cause. For the second season, we wanted to shift our gaze from the NF Hope concert stage to those behind the scenes. Speak to NF researchers and pharmaceutical companies who are researching NF and potentially creating new therapies, as well as those that are even looking at alternative treatments. We then wanted to speak to NF families. So we will have interviews with multi-generational NF families as well as panels of family members who will tell us a little bit about what the NF experience is really like. We have a lot of incredible people to speak to this season. So without further ado, this is the live interviews. Here at the NF Hope Concerts, we are blessed to have the support of numerous organizations who sign on to be NF Hope Concert sponsors. That is especially true of our presenting sponsors, one of which is SpringWorks Therapeutics. We have the honor of having the support of SpringWorks throughout the year for our live events, but they have also chosen to be our presenting sponsor for this season of the live interviews. So it's only appropriate that we begin this season with an interview with our good friend, Dr. Uche Iloeje. Dr. Iloeje is the Senior Vice President and Head of Global Medical Affairs at SpringWorks Therapeutics. He has been supporting the Neurofibromatosis Network and NF Hope Concerts for a number of years now, and is a staunch advocate for NF families, helping push the boundaries closer and closer to potential therapies. I don't want to give too much away since he's waiting in the wings, so it is now my honor to let him do the talking and introduce Dr. Uche Iloeje. Welcome, Uche. How are you?
Very well, Jeff. Good to see you. It's been a while.
Good to see you too. Thank you so much for joining us today. As you just heard, we're honored to have SpringWorks support not only in general for NF Network, but you are officially the sponsor of the live interview season 2. So I'm really excited that we get to dive into a second season. And while everybody loves some great performances, this season I get to focus on talking to researchers and the folks that are actually helping the NF community in a much different way, like you. So thank you for being here today. Now, I'm going to hope that I didn't butcher your name. So, and you did this on stage last year at the NF Hope concert, but if anybody looks at your last name, they would probably pronounce it something like Iloeje or something like that. So, your name, just state it for the record.
That's correct, Jeff. It's Iloeje. The O is actually silent for the most part.
All right.
But I would also answer to Iloeje if someone feels comfortable calling me that, but Iloeje is the right pronunciation.
Okay, well, now we all know, and we have it on video so that if anybody can't pronounce it on their own, we'll send them a clip. And do me a favor, we've been lucky enough to know you for quite a while now, and you have moved from role to role within SpringWorks, kind of expanding what you do. What is your official role now?
So right now, I am the Senior Vice President and the Global Head of Medical Affairs at SpringWorks Therapeutics. And this is a role that I just assumed September of last year.
All right. Well, congratulations. And
thank you very much.
It has been wonderful to get to know you, but also good to see somebody that you respect so much make their way up in a company like SpringWorks that we obviously respect so much. So we're going to take us back a little bit. You have an incredible position at an organization that's doing quite a bit of good in the world, especially from the aspect of an NF parent. So let's go back to kind of where you started. When did you kind of first know that you wanted to pursue a career in science?
It's a very interesting question, Jared, because there wasn't a moment, right, that led me down this pathway. I think it was just an accumulation of things. It goes back to actually one of my earliest memories was having a conversation with my dad as a 4-year-old And one of those moments where your father tells you what he thinks you want, he wants you to be, or what he thinks, you were put on earth to be. And he basically said to me, you're a generally caring person. Um, you feel other people's pains. You're empathetic. I think you should be a doctor. And that was it, right? And my dad being someone that I absolutely idolize, like most young men do their fathers, I took that to heart, and I started molding myself to become a physician. I took the courses in high school, biology, chemistry, were one of my best courses in high school, to try to get me to a position to actually be credible in the medical school application process. So I think I'd like to say my dad kind of programmed me to be this. At some point, though, I wanted to do law, just to do the exact opposite of what my dad wanted me to do, as most young men do at a point in their careers, right? And it was a very interesting conversation with my dad. And when he asked me why I wanted to change from medicine to law, I didn't have a great answer. And the answer I came up with might make you laugh, but I was a big fan of Perry Mason, the TV series. I'm like, what? I want to be like Perry Mason. I think at that point, my dad knew I wasn't very serious. But no, that was just, it was something that I've always heard and believed that I should be. And that's it. Nothing, very simple story.
All right. Well, and other than rebelling against your father, was there anything else that you thought you might want to be when you were young? The kind of dreams a young kid has about what they're going to be when they grow up?
Not really. The other thing I wanted to be, and again it goes back to my dad, is I just wanted to be a father as well. Right? One of the things that really was important to me was to have the chance one day to be a dad. And again, I go back to idolizing my own father. So being a doctor and being a dad, those are the two big things that I wanted to make sure I did in my life.
Well, that answer there kind of states pretty much who you are and why we're so lucky to get to know you. Along the way, was there somebody specifically that sort of aimed you in the direction that you're in, or you just kind of explored science until something happened?
No, there were a couple of people that particularly were instrumental in my getting through the medical training program, and particularly when I came to this country, as well as also instrumental to my joining the pharma industry. Those are the two big pivot points in my life. So when I first came to this country from Nigeria after medical school, medical training back in Nigeria was really designed to produce clinicians. And that's what the country needs, not researchers and not scientists. So the vast majority of our medical education was geared towards becoming a good clinical practitioner. When I came to the United States for my medical residency, I ran into a great clinician at UConn, where I did my residency. His name is Dr. Henry Schneiderman, just an excellent clinician. He also exposed my mind to the idea of how to ask questions of data. He got me to write one of my first papers that I ever wrote that got published. I co-published with him, and I enjoyed the process of asking questions and coming up with some answers and then putting yourself to peer review process, right? To pressure test yourself and measure yourself against other people. So I give him a lot of credit for opening that door for me. Finishing my medical residency, I trained in intensive care medicine to be an ICU doctor. Very intense lifestyle, which I love to do. And that was at the University of Pittsburgh, where I did my fellowship. Finishing that, though, there was just something about the practice of medicine in the early 1990s and late 90s that just got me wondering, is being a clinician what I was really meant to be, or should I explore something even different from that? At that point in time, I started talking to people that I respected. One of my cousins, her name is Dr. Henrietta Oko. She is currently working for a drug company, but at that time she was at Merck, and she was working to get some of the early HIV therapeutics into practice through the FDA, particularly a drug called Crixaban, which Merck was bringing forth at that point in time. And back in the 90s, HIV was a big scourge. When I spoke to her, she was so excited about what she was doing, right? The potential to impact lives. And I do remember one of the things she said to me was, being a clinician is great and nothing against that. But if you can get one drug to market, you help people that you don't even know. You never get to meet them. How satisfying and how cool could that be? So that really was the point where I started contemplating a career in industry.
Wow. So that was kind of the turning point. You had never really imagined a career in pharmaceuticals. It was probably more along the lines of what clearly not only just you but your family has in wanting to impact lives. Is that kind of what guided you to pharma, and what took you from your residency into your first job in pharmaceuticals?
So that's absolutely correct. In fact, when I was thinking about research, I was thinking clinical research in the context of an academic career at a university hospital. She was the person that opened my eyes to the potential of doing that in the pharma industry. So she gets all the credit or the blame, no matter depending on perspective, for setting me on this pathway. But the journey from the clinical field into the pharma industry started from when I spoke to her, and then she gave me a good piece of advice, which was many of us go through medical training in Nigeria, and as I mentioned, we're not trained in research techniques and research methodology. She had basically figured it out on her own, but she advised me to go back to school and get a proper training in research design, how to design studies, interpret data, statistics, etc. For me, it was a very interesting advice, but I wanted to be best prepared to succeed. So I actually went back to school. I left clinical practice. I went back to Yale University and I got a degree in epidemiology from Yale University. After which I then got a job at Bristol Myers Squibb, and that was my first industry job. And it's a very interesting story, Jay, because I like to reflect on this. When I was doing my fellowship and my master's degree at Yale University, I was probably in my mid to late 30s. All of my classmates were in their mid 20s, early 20s, right? Really smart kids. And I had never used a laptop in my life before. That was my first experience. So you can imagine having to do homework, being in SAS class, in the lab, or for statistics, and just feeling lost. But that was also a lesson in humility, right? Because I reached out to this really smart kid, made friends with them, and thanks to them, I got through my training program very well.
So was it at Bristol Myers or in graduate school that you kind of discovered an interest in rare diseases, or is that something that came about after you landed at SpringWorks?
So it was actually after I left Bristol Myers. My first job at a rare disease company was after Bristol Myers at a company called Alexion Pharmaceuticals, which I believe is now a part of a different company. There do some mergers that have occurred. Alexion was the first place that I got exposed to rare diseases, and it really sparked my interest. And from that point on, I have exclusively worked in rare diseases.
And is that what drew you to work at SpringWorks? Was it an opportunity to work on rare diseases that landed you there?
Exactly. So after Alexion, where I spent a few years, I went to another rare disease company in New York called Intercept Pharmaceuticals, and I got a call from my boss who was at Alexion, who had now moved to SpringWorks, and he sold me on this opportunity to help bring a very small, young, nascent company um, that was interested in rare diseases and help the company succeed. It was a risk. It was actually it was a private company at that time, so no one knew about it. But the prospect of just developing therapeutics for two new diseases that had nothing approved at that time was just difficult to resist.
And do you feel is that why is it so important for SpringWorks to work on rare diseases? Do you feel like it was sort of grounded in that initial experimentation on what they can do, or they've always had a background in rare disease? So what is it you think that is the reason it's so important for SpringWorks to focus on this and bring in incredible people like you?
So SpringWorks, let me go back to the rare disease areas as a
Sure.
general concept, right? Many rare diseases are underappreciated in terms of how impactful and how devastating they can be on patients' lives, because most people will get along their daily activities and never meet a patient with a rare disease. So it's not front of mind for them.
Mhm.
And I've come to recognize that leads to some frustration among patients and families that live and have to deal with rare diseases. And I think that frustration comes from a sense of isolation and not caring. Uh, but there's a lot of work that's been done that's been good work in the rare disease space, but there's plenty of work yet to be done. So SpringWorks was founded on a mission to develop breakthrough therapeutics for patients living with devastating rare diseases and cancers. We have a very strong team here, and we have a clear purpose because our goal is to make sure that we keep front of mind that there are patients and there are families who are waiting for answers, right? And everything we do here is designed to help them get those answers.
That's incredible. I mean, as the father of a child with a rare disease, and somebody who just 12 years ago had never, as you said, thought about rare disease or even knew if I had ever met somebody. Obviously, this kind of stuff is important, and it's I think it's nice to see that there are more pharmaceutical companies that are making their way into the rare disease world. But to see one focus specifically on neurofibromatosis is obviously a rarity. Do you know what is it about NF, or what drew SpringWorks to work specifically on NF? Was it just a drug that offered promise, or was there a connection and an interest specifically?
So there's a little bit of different things. As I mentioned, SpringWorks was founded with a mission to come up with breakthrough therapeutics for patients with devastating rare diseases. We actually were founded in 2017 with two in-licensed products. These are products that were licensed from a bigger company that decided not to advance them for different business reasons. But at the same time, I think a lot of credit has to be given to patient advocacy organizations because the relevant patient advocacy groups were advocating for this other company to out-license this promising molecule so that a company interested like SpringWorks could take them forward. So in a sense, we came into NF by luck, right? Because there was this molecule that was being shelved by a different company that had promising NF. In addition to that, there was very good phase 2 data from investigator-led studies that were conducted by the NF Clinical Trial Consortium that also showed that this molecule had promise. So we took it on. We took it on with gusto, and we brought our own efforts to bear. We developed the drug even further. We're doing more trials right now. And I can tell you that as a company, we are highly motivated by the NF community. A lot of the work that we've done, a lot of things we've learned over the past 4 years that I've been here, and the past 5 years of our existence in the company, has been because we've been exposed to patients and the NF network and CTF and people like you, right? It teaches us why the work we do is so important.
That's incredible. And then for those of you who are watching who might not know what the Clinical Trials Consortium is, it's actually something that comes out of the advocacy work that the NF organizations like NF Network especially do to help ensure that there's federal funding. And a good portion of the federal funding from something called the NF Research Program, which is part of the congressionally directed medical research programs, goes to fund clinical research. And it's always exciting to hear the success stories out of the NF Clinical Trials Consortium, because these are the things that really guide companies like SpringWorks, like other drug companies, to make that connection between the research lab and clinical applications for families. So just a little detail in there, and then kind of to jump back in, we as an NF dad, again, I am very aware of where SpringWorks is with their NF research, and what the potential is, especially for my daughter, who has a plexiform neurofibroma, like unfortunately so many with NF1. So where is SpringWorks right now, Uche, with their NF treatments and with the work that they're doing?
Yeah. So as you very well know, but some may not know, we have a drug called mirdametinib, which belongs to a class of drugs called MEK inhibitors. And MEK inhibitors have been proven to be effective in NF1 patients with plexiform neurofibromas. So SpringWorks has a clinical trial called ReNeu, which is a phase 2b study. We're very hopeful that this study could be registrational, but that is yet to be determined. The study is fully enrolled. We've enrolled adults and pediatric patients into one study, and it's fully enrolled. We're now rapidly accruing data. it is clearly a hope that we'll conclude that study very soon as we possibly can. And then we'll start the difficult work of analyzing the data and engaging the FDA to make sure that this drug becomes an effective therapeutic and an option for patients who are living with flexible neurofibromatosis right now.
That would be incredible. I think everybody is not doesn't fully understand the process of getting FDA approval, especially after living in the world of COVID for so long, where things were pushed through so quickly that this is a long process to understand how these drugs affect patients before the data is dug through and reports are written to the FDA and approval has finally been given. So we keep our fingers crossed that it rides the fast track in any way possible. But in the meantime, are there other things that SpringWorks is hoping to, other symptoms or anything else for the NF community that SpringWorks is hoping to achieve in the future?
Yes. So we are in collaboration with, and it's on our website, so I can actually communicate it with St. Jude's Children's Hospital, looking at pediatric low-grade glioma, which is again a manifestation that is very common in patients who have NF1. So that's something we're also looking at right now. That's a little bit earlier on in the time frame as compared to our ReNeu study, but that is clearly of interest to us as well.
Okay, so one final question. This is really kind of more to you than SpringWorks. Obviously, I think the answer that all of us would like to give when asked what we hope can come out of NF research and direct potential treatments is that we are all out of a job. I think that would be the best outcome.
Absolutely.
Because that means that there is no NF to worry about anymore. Barring that, if I asked you that question, what is your hope in the treatment and the support for the NF community? What would your answer be?
So I think I still have that hope, right? And I'll come to that later on, that one day we're going to end the NF because that's really important to do. Mm-hmm. But I think, for me, in the short to medium term, I would like to see patients have different options, right? Different options to manage the different clinical manifestations that NF is associated with. We know that these manifestations are very different, and you're going to have different approaches to treating them and managing them. So giving patients, their families and clinicians multiple options from which to choose, that for me is an immediate short-term need. The second thing is, trying to make sure that people aren't stigmatizing patients with NF. We've all seen some of the social media, bullying practices of patients with NF skin manifestation. That's a very famous story of a young lady in New York City who has skin disease from NF, and somebody tried to shame her, thinking she had monkeypox. Those things have to stop, right? Those things have to stop. So I think it's better education and understanding that, these are, human beings like us who just happen to have a genetic manifestation, and being empathetic and being better educated, right, about the disease and other rare diseases as well. But I still hold out hope that one day there'll be gene therapy that would actually lead to no more clinical manifestations for NF patients.
Well, here's to that. And then very well that the NF Hope Concerts, one of the reasons that my wife and I founded the NF Hope Concerts was as awareness. At first, as a parent who had never heard the word neurofibromatosis before, I think there was part of it to ensure that next time I tap somebody on the shoulder, that when I ask them what the word is, they know what it is because we've told them. But there's certainly that piece to it that you mentioned earlier, and that there needs to be education, there needs to be understanding. In a time when we're coming off of a global pandemic where personal space feels like it's more about safety than choice. Understanding what it means when an NF patient walks up to you and wants to shake your hand or give you a hug, and they've got dermal lesions. That's part of what education is about. It's part of making sure that the NF community is accepted as just another person and not somebody to be feared simply because they have some clinical manifestation of a disorder that people don't understand. So I appreciate, of course, your interest in hoping for cures and treatments, but I may borrow your idea of furthering education, since we have a platform to do it, and maybe there'll even be an opportunity with the live interviews. But we're kind of coming to an end here. For those of you who don't know, we've been blessed to have have SpringWorks Therapeutics as our national sponsor for the last few years. This year, they actually dropped into a brand new slot called the national sponsor, and they are literally our first one. So we're honored to continue working with them. It's helping us do more things for the NF community. It's helping us help with education, and I'm hoping that this season that's being sponsored by SpringWorks may offer an opportunity for us to educate some people, and in the end, really kind of do what started this whole conversation, something that you were focused on, which was the idea of being empathetic and helping those around you. And if you can do that, and the NF Hope Concert can do that, and this show can do that, then I think we've got a pretty good start in our hands. But Uche, it's always a pleasure to talk with you. It's always better when it's in person, and I love when we have those opportunities, but I'll take what I can get.
No, thank you so much, Jeff. And I just two very quick closing comments. I just want to thank you, and the passion, the dedication, and the work that you and your wife, bring to this cause. It's not. I know, obviously, I've met your family, I've met your wife, I've met your daughter. What a beautiful family, and great young lady, by the way. But just thank you for that. But I also want to thank the patients, because I've met so many patients through the NFO concert that I've been to in the past, including the more recent Las Vegas one. It reminds me, and it reminds the folks at SpringWorks why we come to work every day. I can tell you, every time any one of us engages a patient in person, it's so energizing, right? And for those moments, for those days that you wonder, if you look at computer screens all day long, why? You remember those patient faces. I think that's what keeps us going. So a big thanks on my behalf and from SpringWorks to the patients.
It's our pleasure. I think you share the passion that we have, and the reason why this concert exists in the first place. So thank you very much for your time today. It's always great to speak with you, and I look forward to the next opportunity, and I look forward to getting these shows out there so that we can do even more. Thank you so much, Uche. Have a great day.
Thank you, you too. Bye-bye.